up, everybody, and welcome to 2021! Woo! Happy New Year's! And I have a very good New Year's resolution. I want to get as many people as possible to get vaccinated because it's important. But everywhere I go, I hear about people not wanting to get the new COVID-19 vaccine. Because in Germany, just recently, a few days ago, the first vaccination started. And there are genuinely valid concerns regarding vaccines. But when I talk to all these anti-vaxxers, I don't hear any valid points. And on this note, welcome to part 2 of the vaccine series, my shit list of vaccine concerns. First of all, infant immune systems can't handle this many vaccines. Considering the amount of antibodies, a baby could handle around 10,000 vaccines at once, and it would use only 0.1% of a baby's immune capacity. But in reality, babies are exposed to hundreds and thousands of bacteria and viruses every day, and their immune systems are way stronger than you might think. Natural immunity is better, and vaccines just cause the diseases they should prevent. Actually, catching the disease triggers oftentimes a way stronger immune response and could be therefore more dangerous. But even if you're not really immune to the disease, the risk of getting dangerously sick after getting a vaccination decreases immensely. If you want to catch, for example, the measles, to get immune afterwards, your chances of dying from the measles infection is actually 1 in 500. If you're getting vaccinated, the chance of dying from the vaccine is 1 in 1 million. So I personally think the choice should be very easy. Yes, vaccines can cause similar symptoms like the disease they should prevent you from. But that's actually just your immune system responding to the compounds in the vaccine. Because your body is treating the vaccine like an infection with a disease to can produce antibodies. In the next part of this series, we will talk a bit in more detail about the way vaccines trigger our immune system and how we can build those antibodies. Vaccines contain unsafe toxins, like aluminum. But it's not actually aluminum, it's aluminum hydroxide. And if you really think it's the same as aluminum, then your table salt should be almost the same as chlorine. But it's not, because of chemistry. And the isolated aluminum is between 0.85 to 0.125 milligrams per dose of vaccine. And it's 100 times less than what our daily intake by food and water is. Just bread and other cereal products have 5 to 10 milligrams aluminum per kilogram. And it's used in vaccines to trigger a bigger immune response, and it's been proven in many studies that the presence of aluminum hydroxide in vaccines triggers a production of more antibodies. So it's basically to save your life. Another unsafe toxin is formaldehyde. And yes, that is a very scary substance, of course, because it is toxic. But it is toxic in way bigger amounts. Because in vaccines, there are just trace amounts of formaldehyde, because it's used to inactivate viruses and bacteria and will be filtered out in the process. So basically, it's there to save your life. I really don't know where the problem is, but you need formaldehyde, and it's just in trace amounts. It's been filtered out. It's only used to inactivate viruses. That's it. And more importantly, your body produces around 50 milligrams formaldehyde in a day. And one of the biggest myths of compounds in vaccines is mercury. As far as I could find, mercury is in Europe in only 2 vaccines allowed, and for both of them there are alternatives without mercury, so I don't know where the problem is, so just use the other one. And there's no proof nor a hint that these tiny amounts can have a negative effect anywhere. Oftentimes I read about human fetuses in vaccines. And let me tell you this very clearly. There are no human fetuses in vaccines. But in the 60s, scientists used cell strains from aborted fetuses. And that was a big scandal. And honestly, it's disgusting to think about. But safe vaccines need those cell strains. But due to new technologies, no vaccine as of today, not one, uses cells from those fetuses. And they never actually used DNA. Altogether, you can say there are compounds that can be dangerous if you plan on getting 700,564 vaccines in 20 minutes. Otherwise, you'll be fine. The biggest of myths regarding vaccines cause autism. Just in short, no. I've been talking about this briefly in part 1 of the series, but now we will look more onto the shady details. The researcher Andrew J. Wakefield published a study in 1998 in The Lancet. He selected the 12 children carefully but claimed sampling was randomized. It has been implied he chose them to get the results he wanted. Furthermore, was his study partially funded by lawyers that were involved in lawsuits against vaccine manufacturers. Dates were faked, and parents were given false hope of healing, and they've been promised money to provide for their children's healthcare. And sadly enough, all those kids had to go under very invasive procedures, and it was reported that these procedures and tests were very unnecessary. The publisher later found Wakefield and co-authors guilty of ethical violations and scientific misconduct. But I found another study or a meta-analysis that references a relationship between autistic spectrum disorder and higher levels of mercury, which might contribute to the vaccine discussion. But this meta-analysis not once mentions vaccines or mercury as the trigger for ASD. It just mentions a possible impairment of the detoxification and excretory mechanisms of mercury in patients with ASD, which led to accumulation of mercury in the body. Future additional studies on mercury levels in different tissues of ASD patients should be undertaken. So it mentions specifically that the impairment mechanisms are maybe the reasons for a higher mercury level, not the mercury level as a reason for ASD. And it has nothing to do with vaccines. So now that we have established that these points are in fact just myths, we should talk more about valid ones. The scary part with vaccine is that there had been many big scandals, and the fear of bad manufacturers wanting to save money and adulterate some substances that can cause harm is real. But as long as we only discuss proven crap instead of real problems, nothing can change. We can't ask manufacturers to be more transparent and to be more responsible if the only thing we criticize them for is all fairy tales. Because these diseases belong in history books and not in our communities. And vaccines are the only way. Despite many concerns and the trust we need to even get vaccinated in the first place, the only reason we're not scared of polio, smallpox, pertussis, and many, many more diseases are vaccines. Some concerns regarding vaccines are valid, but no one talks about them, and that has to change. And the only thing to change that is that people understand that those fairy tales help no one. But the only way to get people to get vaccinated is to spread information and to stop the spread of misinformation. And that is a huge, huge problem because of the internet, basically. There's so many misinformation out there that prevents people from getting vaccinated. And to be really honest with you, it scares me to my core, because 2020 is the best evidence of why we need more vaccinated people. But also 2020 is the reason for many of those not vaccinated people to not get vaccinated further. And that is bonkers to me, but I really don't know how to say this properly, but vaccines are very important. We, as the younger generation, we don't know these horrible, horrible diseases that vaccines saved us from, because vaccines work. But how can vaccines work if no one wants to get vaccinated? The whole continent of Africa is, in 2020, polio-free, is fighting against Ebola, is fighting against COVID-19 and many, many more diseases. Only due to vaccines, they have a chance. And then you look to Europe and the US, and it's so crazy to me that we, with our first world problems, people go in the streets demonstrating against something that saved millions of lives. And it really hurts me, and it really angers me so bad that there's so much evidence out there, and these people walk around and saying, la la la, I don't want to hear your evidence, because I don't know, they don't have a real reason. And it drives me insane that these people are allowed to vote. And I know they should be allowed because I love democracy and it's all okay like this, but it's a bit scary that people that don't understand those basic things have the same right to change the world as everyone else. But that's not those people's fault. It's the fault of our educational system and the misinformation and how we handle the internet in general. There's so many points we have to change something, and we can. But there's so many people, especially in politics, that don't want to listen to scientists, to the people, to basically everyone, because everyone is afraid of change. And that is the biggest change we have to make. Here I will wrap up this video, and I hope you did like it. If so, you know what to do, and maybe share this video, because I think I maybe touched on a few points that could change someone's mind. And if not, I provided many links in the description. You can look up all of the things I said, and of course, let me know what you think, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!